plans to use this 125 pages of additional notes that Tolkien expanded the world of The Hobbit that's published at the end of Return of the King. And we've used some of that so far, and just in the last few weeks as we've been wrapping up the shooting and thinking about the shape of the story, we've actually, Philippa and Fran and I have talked to the studio about other things that we haven't been able to shoot and seeing if we could possibly persuade them to do a few more weeks of shooting. A bit of shooting, additional shooting next year. And what form that ended up taking, the discussions are pretty early, so there isn't anything to report, but we're certainly, there's other parts of the story that we like to tell that we haven't had a chance to tell yet. So we're just trying to have those conversations with you.
My question is for Peter. The Lord of the Rings books were written for more mature readers, and I think that tone reflects itself in your adaptations of the original trilogy. But The Hobbit was written more as a children's novel, and how does that affect your adaptation? Did you aim to match the tone of the novel, or to match the tone set up by your Lord of the Rings movie?
It's a very good question, and I think the answer lies somewhere in between. Again, it's a similar answer actually, because we basically used more source material than just The Hobbit. Like for instance in The Hobbit, where Gandalf mysteriously disappears for chapters on end, and it's never really explained in any detail where he's gone. Much later, Tolkien fleshed those moments out, and he did in these appendices he did talk about what happened, and it was altogether a lot more darker and more serious than what was written in The Hobbit. So we've, and also I do want to make, to be quite honest, I want to make a series of movies that run together. So if any crazy lunatic wants to watch them all in a row,
I don't know anyone like that.
There will be a consistency of tone. I don't want to make a purely children's story followed by The Lord of the Rings. So we are providing a balance. I mean, a lot of the comedy and the charm and the fairy tale quality of The Hobbit comes from the characters. You are dealing with you're dealing with Bilbo Baggins, who is a little more reluctant possibly to go on an adventure than Frodo was. You're dealing with dwarves who have a personality and a sort of a camaraderie of their own, and so there's a lot of humour and a light touch to be gained from those characters, but there's still some serious themes involved. So hopefully the Hobbit films will kind of comfortably straddle both worlds.
Thank you. Why did you decide not to show anything in 48 frames?
When did I decide?
Or why didn't you?
Oh, why didn't I? Well, it's 48 frames a second. I think has the potential of being quite an industry, an important moment for the film industry, because we have to provide a theatrical experience to bring audiences back to the cinemas, because we're in an age where there is dwindling attendance, particularly amongst younger people, and so I think we have to look to the technology that we have to try to figure out ways to make this cinematic experience much more spectacular, more immersive. But Hall H is not the place to do it. I mean, we screen, and nor is it, nor is 10 minutes of footage. You literally, I mean, I've seen a lot of 48 frames over the past year and a half, and it's fantastic. It's an incredible thing, but I didn't want to repeat the CinemaCon experience where literally people see this reel and all they write about is 48 frames a second. I mean, why? That doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do 48 frames a second any good. To accurately judge that, you really need to sit down and watch the entire film, and that opportunity is going to be there in December. I wanted the focus just to be on the footage, the characters, the performances, not the technical stuff.
Mr. Freeman, you've done other literary adaptations before. How can you compare the experiences of taking on Tolkien and taking on Adams?
It's more green screen. It's even more green screen this time with Adams. They're very different. I mean, apart from the fact that they have a fantastical element to them and I'm playing adaptations, they're So that alone makes it different from anything else. The budget makes it different from anything. Like you're constantly walking onto sets and sound stages where what you're acting on would take up the entire budget of any other film I've done. Do you know what I mean? So just the scale of it is quite phenomenal. Yeah, I don't know. For me, they're incomparable.
As far as taking a character from a book, is either author making it easier for you to have any character?
That's a good question. Not that I noticed particularly, no. I mean, again, with Arthur Dent as well, he serves, I suppose, a similar kind of function to Bilbo in that he's the nearest thing to an audience member in the film. He's kind of the audience's way in. But to a certain extent, you could argue that they're archetypes in the hands of a much lesser actor. Cue laugh. They're slow to. No, but they're ciphers in a way, I suppose you could say, and they're people who they're sort of reluctant heroes who end up being heroes kind of by accident, because they're archetypal stay-at-home people, I suppose. But also a lot of the time, it's not just about whether the author makes it easier, because that goes through an adaptive, if that's a word, process, and then you're working with directors as well. So it's the entire experience that kind of determines whether you're going to have an easy time with it or not. So it's not just a Tolkien versus Douglas Adams, both of whom are brilliant writers. It's who's directing the film, who's adapted it, it's everything.
Young lady.
My question's for Martin and Richard. You are the two newbies to this world and this style of filmmaking. How was it coming onto this, and also both of you having to deal with the point of view shots and the fact that your characters are sort of the shorter of the two in this film?
I was quite envious when I came in that the guys that worked on the Trinity had that ability to work without too much attention on that first film. But at the same time, I think the attention was on the Hobbit, maybe not raise the bar, work in a different way. And of course, the facilities at Sturridge Street are phenomenal, so everything just had an energy to it that I've never experienced. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we only really. What do you mean the point of view shot? What do you mean?
Well, like how they filmed some of these, because you used a little bit of trickery when you did the first. Little bit of trickery, where there would be kids dressed in that kind of thing.
Yes.
And
It's only really for me. It became really noticeable when we went to film 2, but I'm allowed to say it. Let me say it in Lake Town.
Spoiler alert.
In the world of in the book in Lake Town, there's human beings, and that's when we became more aware that we're really small. We spend so much of the time just hanging out with each other. I mean, we're very aware that Gandalf is bigger, so we're used to kind of looking at Ian 2 feet above Ian's eyes. But among all of us, we're just the heights we are. So it doesn't really occur to you very often. And Kieran Shah, my scale level hasn't been used that much.
Not as much as on the ring.
No, not that much. So it's felt fairly painless, and it hasn't felt too contrived. And personally, I've been surprised by how quickly I've got used to that. Got used to these ways of filming that I haven't used before. The first time that we ever shot a scene with Gandalf where Ian had to be in a completely different room, I thought, this is ridiculous. This will never work. Who are these people? Why are they doing this to us? And then sort of an hour later you go, oh no, this looks brilliant. And you rehearse it, and it sort of becomes normal. So your whole frame of reference for how you normally work in a film shifts, and what 1 minute is completely unworkable and ridiculous, the next week is just going to work. It becomes very easy.